A small southeastern Ontario town has welcomed the first Ukrainian refugee families to the area, and it highlights the absolute nonsensical hypocrisy of this government. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini, and the two families that arrived in Port Hope, Ontario, just a few days ago, both have one child, and one family even has a second child on the way who they will be welcoming in a mere few months. And I want to be very clear in this report that this is not a sinister hit on actual refugees fleeing actual war zones, but rather to point out the absolute hypocrisy of the Canadian government and their virtuous health and safety policies that aren't actually about the health and safety of Canadians. You see, our minority Liberal government Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, campaigned on the segregation of COVID vaccinated and unvaccinated Canadians in the fall of last year.
You deserve better. You deserve a government that's going to continue to say, get vaccinated. And you know what? If you don't want to get vaccinated, that's your choice. But don't think you can get on a plane or a train besides vaccinated people and put them at risk.
Puis on en connaît tous des gens qui sont en train d'hésiter un petit peu. On va continuer d'essayer de les convaincre. Mais il y a aussi des gens qui sont farouchement opposés à la vaccination.
Qui sont extrémistes.
Qui ne croient pas dans la science, qui sont souvent misogynes, souvent racistes aussi. C'est un petit groupe, mais qui prend de la place. Et là, il faut faire un choix en tant que leader, en tant que pays. Est-ce qu'on tolère ces gens?
With the help of his state-funded media that terrified mainstream news-savvy Canadians into thinking that unvaccinated people were these asymptomatic super spreaders who were going to kill everyone while collapsing our healthcare system. And in doing that, it sowed hate and division between both families and friends. But none of that seems to matter anymore because, well, there's war in Ukraine. And the disregard of this massive push for everyone to be vaccinated indiscriminately is clearly evidenced by the arrival of these two Ukrainian families. In the video posted by today's Northumberland, pregnant mother of soon-to-be 2 children, Hannah, says that they fled Ukraine on February the 26th.
We leave Ukraine at 26 February. It was the third day of the war, and since that time, today 11 April. So from that time, from 26 to 11 April, we are traveling. Not traveling. I can't say that it's traveling. We are on the road, and we just go from one country to other, tried to find the place, and so it's about 2 months already.
That means that they were on the road for almost 2 months and all around Europe, unvaccinated, and now the Canadian government is welcoming them with open arms after banning unvaccinated Canadians from almost all aspects of society for the last several months. Later in the video, the host family notes that none of the family members are vaccinated against COVID-19, and apparently it will be at least another week until they get their first dose. Plus, the children are starting fresh on all of their vaccines, not just the COVID ones, but all childhood vaccines because there's no record of their status prior to arriving in Canada, so Big Pharma has to hit them every which way just to be safe. And yet still, everyday Canadians are stripped of their right to freedom of movement by way of their medical status because as a law-abiding, tax-paying citizen of Canada, if you are not vaccinated against COVID-19, then you are still forbidden by your very own government from boarding a plane, train, or bus. And the same mainstreamists that cheer that on are the ones simultaneously welcoming and cheering on the arrival of unvaccinated refugees with open arms. See, we aren't against the kind-hearted people who have selflessly opened their homes up to refugees or from helping actual war-trampled families seeking refuge here in Canada. We think that that's good, and who cares if those refugees are vaccinated? I know I don't. I don't care if anyone is vaccinated because, quite frankly, it is none of my or anyone's business. But the hypocrisy of this government in the way that it willy-nilly enforces these health and safety protocols and policies is absolutely absurd, especially for an injection that is shown in real time not to prevent transmission or infection. And I wonder if the family will be given true informed consent before they just inject them left, right, and center to get everyone caught up to date on their big pharma loyalty card stamps. Plus, what about this poor family who's been traveling in limbo for almost 2 months and finally they get a space to settle in for a while and bam, there are cameras there in their face upon their arrival. It reminds me of that time 6 years ago where breathless Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called it disgusting that Harper's staffers were allegedly sifting through the personal files of Syrian refugees to handpick ones that would, allegedly, better serve the government's political agenda.
And to know that somewhere in the Prime Minister's office, staffers were pouring through their personal files to try and see whether these families, or find out which families would be suitable for a photo op for the Prime Minister's re-election campaign. That's disgusting.
And then a few months later, he himself, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, went and did a big photo op with those very same refugees for his own political agenda.
As we gather this weekend with our families over Thanksgiving and talk about the kind of country we have and the kind of country we want, I think we need to think about families across the oceans who've been desperately seeking to build a better life for themselves and for their kids.
These are not photography props. These are real people. And we want all people to be able to exercise their freedom of movement regardless of their medical status. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. Vaccine passports make no sense, and this story proves it. Stop the medical apartheid and let everyone travel freely, as is their chartered right. To show the government that you are done with this nonsensical policy, head over to our special website at fightvaccinepassports.com. Sign our petition there, and you can view our most recent reports on the subject and chip in to assist with the legal costs of onboarded clients if you are able to. That website again is fightvaccinepassports.com.